Amazon's The Lord of the Rings of Power be a success? That is the million-dollar question, and I am sure within the first 10 seconds there will be people already commenting saying no, no way, there is no chance, as a lot of people's opinions and thoughts are already fixed about the show, and of course that is completely fine. Like for example, if you are a Tolkien purist and any adaptation that changes the original source material is not for you, and maybe even a taint on the Professor's legacy. Being able to actually answer this question will be impossible 6 months out, as we need to see the final product, but from what we have seen so far, whether that be the marketing strategies, the leaks and rumours, behind the scenes decisions, trending cultural beliefs around the show, I will try and provide my input and context to the question from someone who maybe does probably know a bit more about the show than the average fan without the troubles, luckily, of an NDA. So, will the Amazon Lord of the Rings of Power be a success? In some categories potentially yes, but in other categories potentially no, and I think the main subgroups or categories are Tolkien fans, the diehard fans like us, maybe a lot of people watching this video, general viewers, general fans of television, executives, mainly Amazon executives, and the financial aspect that the show will bring as well. But in itself, success is a broad term, but to the viewpoint of an Amazon executive, that means bringing in a commercial success and revenue, mainly through the increased number of Amazon Prime subscriptions. If The Lord of the Rings gets more people to buy a new subscription on Amazon Prime, whether for 1 month that the show is on or more, it will be deemed a success. The teaser trailer that came out a month ago is currently sitting on around 29 million views at the time of recording on the main Prime Video page, and that is solely due to the Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings name, which will get people to watch and check it out. Whether it got 500 likes or 700,000 dislikes, either way, Amazon will wrap all that up under a nice look statistic such as the one shown on screen right now. This show, at least in the first season, due to the amazing work Tolkien did on the page, and then for example some might consider the work that Peter Jackson did certainly in popularising Lord of the Rings again around the year 2000 and on, that alone will get people to watch the show and mainly renew or buy an Amazon Prime subscription. I'm sure there will be some people saying, I won't be giving Amazon money, I will pirate this show, and I'm sure piracy will be rampant, but with something this big for the first season, whether it is the best season in television history or the worst bastardization ever created, it will succeed in that aspect, at least for the first season. However, will the show be a success for Tolkien fans, probably the smallest group out of those 4 subcategories? From the leaks right now that we have released, you can potentially build a case that this won't be a true one-to-one faithful adaptation to the source material. Then of course some will say that there isn't really a lot of source material for Amazon to be faithful to, which raises the question, why are they building a show off so little source material? The immediate answer to that is creative liberty and fan fiction, and I'm sure from the likes of Meteor Man, Galadriel and Numenor, our leaks are showcasing that a lot of this first season especially will be made up fan fiction. In fact, the show wants to some extent confirm this inevitability, quote, "We didn't want to do a villain-centric thing, we wanted to be about introducing these worlds and these people who dwell in them, and the major heroes and characters, some of whom you know and some of whom are new. Season 2 we go a little deeper into the lore and the stories people have been waiting to hear." Will fans give up after the first season where the true events of the Calibeth and the Forging of the Rings aren't fully delved into, and instead we get Elrond in a rock breaking contest and probably a lot of made up backstory to some of these characters? I'm sure the reaction to a season 1 where most of it is invented will get diehard Tolkien fans to tune out, and if this reaction is big, then the first season could be perceived to be a failure. The obvious counter to that is the overall audience watching the show. Tolkien fans will be a minority in the first few seasons, just like with the movies and most adaptations of franchises, but don't underestimate of course the word of mouth ordeal, whereby if word gets around for a minority that the show isn't a success, then this could be spread far and wide and have ramifications on the reputation of the show, and that could have some damaging effects. If Amazon find a balance by inevitably having to create new stories and events, which is justified because of it being a 5-season show, but still stick true to the lore and importantly the main themes of Tolkien's works, as with most adaptations of an author's works there will be changes and modifications, but those changes would still need to make sense and at least fit in that world, which in this case is Middle-earth. If that fine line is struck, the show will be perceived as a success for some Tolkien fans and average viewers as well, because most of the time when you mainly follow the narrative and story beats found in the source material, then it will probably be the best outcome. Peter Jackson even mentioned that during the production, when they were confused on how and where to take the story narrative next and how it will work, they would just open up the text, and most of the time Tolkien already had the answer and the best solution for it to work forward. For Payne and McKay this is slightly different, as they of course don't have thousands of pages to gloss over, but sticking true to what makes the Second Age so great, such as the Machiavellian storytelling of the Akelebeth, the friendship and unions within Eregion between Celebrimbor and Annatar Narvi, and even the longevity of elven life, which is a point that we'll get onto later. They just need to know where to look, and if they do, I'm sure it will be a success in some people's eyes. But I am sure that most are waiting to know, from what I know personally, whether there will be a success in regards to the inside information I have, and whether that means it will be faithful to Tolkien. Well, all I would say is give the show until at least season 2, and to not be put off by created fanfiction. I know that is quite hard, as it will hopefully pay off in later seasons, but if it does continue into later seasons and they keep on creating new stuff, then by all means rip the show to bits. You don't even really need my context for this, as Amazon have made it clear themselves through their current official announcements with the Ronde and Bronwyn storyline, which is original, Halbrand, who the hell is that, Elnor Nori Brandyfoot, a Harfoot, father and son Durins, of course not officially announced yet either, but Adar the Dark Lord. But by the end of season 1, I believe that before people give up or tune out by episodes and episodes of created stories and original backstories, which wasn't really mentioned by Tolkien at all, ring making will come into play, and some major canonical event from Tolkien's Legendarium that people will know about and remember and be excited for. Some might have tuned out already, but by the end of season 1, this will probably draw some Tolkien fans back in before they just think this is 100% pure fanfiction. Of course I won't specify what this is, as it's such a big spoiler which will just make a lot of people angry at us, but it is a noted event / moment in the Second Age. So there is some looking forward to that, which certainly for me keeping me still in check for the time being. Carrying on with fan perception so far, it does really seem, and something my good friend Hen says as well, which is that Amazon are boldly going out and making decisions which will probably annoy a lot of Tolkien fans, such as a lot of original characters alongside forced relationships, and in fact the plentiful of love relationships in the first season, which is quite a sensitive topic currently in the fandom, alongside the funky elven hairstyles, and I'm sure I can go on. But if the showrunners are fully invested in these decisions to go out there and be bold and make these decisions because they are confident in what they're going to produce, then that is something to look potentially forward to then, as it must be pretty good, as again when it comes to something of this magnitude, there are fine lines. I do 100% understand people's and our viewers' worries about the show based off our leaks, and of course, as many people mention, a lot of context is still being missed, but still with some you can get a broad idea. For example, like the character Adar being played by Joseph Maul, this twisted and corrupted elf who is now the leader of orcs, which on paper sounds pretty ridiculous, but fair enough. Of course, the infamous Meteor Man and how that plot would play out with him and the hobbits. The closest we get to asteroids and meteors is with Turin's sword and the man on the moon, but now a character landing from the sky is, let's say, a bit of an alien concept in Tolkien's works. But if some Game of Thrones fans or a Harry Potter fans or a general fantasy fan sees a person arrive from the sky like that, they might find it pretty cool, and some new Dark Lord with swanky armor with all the orcs shouting Adar while attacking a village, and of course hobbits. I am sure some of you saw my first reaction to hobbits, and this was an immediate reaction, and I was pretty annoyed and dismissive, but the inclusion of half-orcs represents the global success that Amazon are thriving for and will probably achieve because of the influence of hobbits. Because if you ask a random person what they know/remember most about Lord of the Rings, whether that's books or the movies, it is probably hobbits and Sauron and Gandalf. And if I was making a show on the second age, I would not include hobbits at all, but for the show to be a success beyond just Tolkien fans, let's be honest, you still need to include them. And my main worry beyond that then is that if they are going to be involved heavily in the first season, and it seems that their common involvement is with the Meteor Man storyline, but again we don't have context as to how involved they will be. However, from what I know, where will Lord of the Rings of Power be most successful in most boxes, whether that is the Tolkien fans, Lord of the Rings movie fans, the necessary general audience, the financial and corporate success of the show, I believe is through the kingdom of Numenor. That is quite an ambiguous answer at first, but I will try to refine it for you. Some of the stuff in Numenor is what I am most looking forward to personally, and probably some of the things everyone will be blown away by. There is probably a reason why Amazon are holding that back as another card after their average/lowered reaction to the teaser and showrunner comments reaction, as firstly the idea and concept of Numenor is something new that we haven't seen visually in Middle-earth. As the movies, when we see Gondor, it is not at the peak of men, and in comparison to Numenor that we will get in the show, we will understand why the men of Numenor were held in such high regard. Of course, with the elves and dwarves, to some extent we have seen that already, but a whole different island continent detached from Middle-earth will be surprising for the average viewer and new viewers. Also, the actors on the sets, and the sets such as Tristan Gravel, who is playing Farazon, we have heard such high praise so far for about his acting ability, the passion and intent in his speeches and so on, is truly exciting. The actual story of the Calibeth and Downfall itself is some of Tolkien's best works in the Second Age, if not the best in rivalry, of course, with the Forging of the Rings. But most importantly, for someone from Game of Thrones, a Game of Thrones fan, or people who watch historical fiction shows, or were thinking this was going to be a bright, high fantasy show, they will be in for a surprise with the grounded Machiavellian politics in Numenor. Finally, in the first seasons, a lot of the main battles and actions with orcs etc. will involve Numenorians, and let's be real, people love battles as well. So this Numenor in general just encapsulates everything for Amazon. But something directly linked to Numenor, which is a massive deciding factor for me for this Lord of the Rings of Power not being a success with Tolkien fans, is around time compression and how this affects the theme of longevity of elven life in comparison to the mortality of men conveyed to the 3,000-year-long Numenorian kingdom, evoking the sense of hatred towards the elves and the ban of the Valar, which was placed upon the Numenorians, which was actually meant to be a gift which rallies up the faithful versus the Kingsmen in Numenor, resulting in the downfall. This gets greatly hindered by time compression, as we also don't see the political, cultural, aesthetic change and progression within Numenor that maybe one time jump could have facilitated. But time compression for this show to be a critical success for general audiences and the average viewer is of course thought of and important, as seeing half your cast of men and hobbits chopped off midway in the show could easily turn a lot of people off. So Amazon have of course thought of that as thinking what is actually best television. So I think we'll just have to wait until the show itself to get the answer to this. The final parting thing I would add is that I am not an idiot. I know about the culture war out there that is going on. Heck, look at the comments to most of our videos, where it is effectively most of the time a battleground when those hot button topics which weren't even mentioned in the video are of course the main things talked about, and of course we don't mention the debate around diversity etc. on our channel in either way, but it would be naive for me to not at least mention this as a reason which some might judge the show as to whether it is a success or not, as I'm sure the show will be a failure to some if all the elves aren't white. For some it will be a failure if the Numenorian and Elven society doesn't represent and show more people of colour. Either way, they probably think a success or a failure. We shall see. I hope you guys have enjoyed or at least listened to this more honest and realistic overview of the show, as I'm sure some will agree and some will heavily disagree around some points discussed in the video. I've tried my hardest to provide counterpoints or opposing views to at least all of the points I have put forth, and I'm sure there will be a lot more counterpoints in the comments below, which I'll of course welcome. Thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Until the next video my friends, goodbye.